More.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For 2 years, angry landowners have packed town halls and high school gyms across Alberta to voice their outrage over Bills 19, 24, 36 and 50, laws that trample on their property rights and revoke their entitlement to full compensation and the courts. Most recently, it was this government's own Property Rights Task Force that heard from the landowners. At one particular hearing, attendees chanted, "Repeal these bills." Today, we learn the government's response to these landowners is to improve engagement. That's insulting. To the Premier, your task force was a sham. Why won't you do the right thing and repeal these bills?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, there's been some very good public discussion with respect to what has to happen in relation to land use planning in this province, Mr. Speaker, right across this province. Certainly very important to this government is to ensure that people's property rights are protected. We've said all along, Mr. Speaker, that we have to be very clear with respect to consultation, with respect to compensation, and with respect to access to the courts, and we will ensure that happens, Mr. Speaker.
Not true, Mr. Speaker. Again to the Premier. Given that the January 16th edition of the Rocky View Weekly reported, quote, "The call to repeal the 4 land bills was the overarching piece of advice that the Property Rights Task Force heard from." How can you possibly claim to be listening to Albertans? Why do you refuse to listen to Albertans and repeal these damaging and destructive bills?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, there's a number of reports with respect to discussions that have taken place across this province, and I'm not minimizing the fact that there are Albertans who do believe that it's appropriate to repeal the legislation. But, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we will have seen already from the report that was released today was that there are also Albertans who understand the importance of integrated land use planning, of balancing the interests of all Albertans, Mr. Speaker, and we will ensure that that happens.
This adds a whole new meaning to in one ear and out the other. I can't believe it. Again to the Premier. Given that you're clearly going to keep ignoring landowners who overwhelmingly want you to repeal these bills, will you at least apologize to the landowners for wasting their time and taxpayers for wasting their money on this utter sham of a task force? It's insulting to them.
Mr. Speaker, it's fascinating to me that when we look at the public discussion around this issue and we even look at some of the legislation that's being brought forward by other parties to perhaps try to correct this situation, that what this honourable member is proposing in his private member's bill isn't even what he's advocating today, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly. The Honourable Member for Hinman, Norwood.